Hello again, this is Josh Winchester coming to you with another episode of my video blog, The Comic Book Sci-Fi Kingdom. Today I'm going to be continuing my discussion about periods in history for the comic book, particularly the superhero comic book. Today we're going to be covering the Silver Age of comic books. Now this was a period in history from 1956 till 1970, and this was like leaving out the whole time in the 1950s completely. I'm just going to briefly explain what happened at that point. Like I said at the end of my last video, there was a lot of different comic books. There were still some superhero comics, but they weren't as popular. The horror comics got to be particularly gruesome, especially the ones done by EC Comics. And things got to be so bad, especially after Dr. Frederick Wertham, a renowned child psychologist. Now this is an example of a classic EC comic called Tales from the Crypt. They did also crime and suspense stories and other things like that. But one thing that was really bad was especially when Frederick Wertham had written his book Seduction of the Innocent, in which he, being a child psychologist, completely analyzed and broke down based on his knowledge that he believed comic books were a leading cause of juvenile delinquency in America's children. And things got to be so bad that the Senate Subcommittee on Juvenile Delinquency, headed by Senator Estes Kefauver, came to New York and held a series of hearings in which they pretty much attacked, in the way that the HUAC attacked people who were accused of being communists during the 50s, comic books, comic book men, and publishers. They only called into account one person, though, and that was Maxwell Gaines, head of EC Comics. And there was one point where he actually was shown a large blow-up of one of his covers. It's of an axeman. You do not see his face. He's holding a bloody axe and a woman's head. And he is asked, "Did you do this comic?" And he said, "Yes, that is one of my comics. That is a particularly good cover. I'm quite proud of it." But in the end, the damage was so bad. Comics were being burned across America by children and families. It was just a really bad time for our friends in the funny pages, folks. I gotta tell you that. And then, so the last companies that hadn't been railroaded out by the Senate hearings and by angry parents and teachers banded together and formed the Comics Code Authority, which was essentially a governing body which would create a series of guidelines and rules that all comics would follow, and only comics that had this little symbol shown up here in the corner, which states, "Approved by the Comics Code Authority." If you did not have that symbol on your comic, you could not be shown in stores. But now on to the Silver Age. This was when the whole superhero genre of comics actually kicked back off, and it was in no small part thanks to DC and their magazine Showcase, in which DC would run various stories on various characters. They kicked it off by reintroducing one of their Golden Age characters, the Flash, and they reintroduced him in the costume that you see him wearing today as Barry Allen, police scientist, who one night while working late in the lab is struck by a bolt of lightning which also strikes a case of chemicals. Now that mixture of chemicals and the lightning, no one ever knows obviously what chemicals were on that shelf, has a unique effect on Barry's body chemistry, causing him now to be able to run faster than the speed of sound, vibrate his body's molecules so that he can phase through objects. Now, he gains his inspiration to become the Flash from his childhood hero, Jay Garrick, the Golden Age Flash, as I mentioned in my second video blog. Now, this completely kick-started everything. Superhero comics came back in storm. Showcase was still showing the Flash. They were also showing other characters, but things also really kicked off again. Now, Superman and Batman were still around at this point, along with Wonder Woman. They just hadn't been doing as well. They had to opt out for introducing a lot of whimsical things, but Showcase, they introduced a lot of other characters. Adam's interplanetary adventurer, Adam Strange, in his first adventure, The Planet and the Pendulum. And then in issue 22, DC reintroduced another iconic Golden Age character of theirs. Unfortunately, I cannot find the actual issue in question, but here's one including him. The Green Lantern. In this case, Hal Jordan under under orders from the Guardians of Oa. Of course, we'll be seeing that in the Green Lantern film, which is opening in June. Marvel also got on the bandwagon by reintroducing and also showing off a whole bunch of their characters. There was the Avengers, a well-known superhero team. They were the Marvel equivalent to the Justice League of America. They were a whole bunch of their characters. Iron Man, Hulk, Ant-Man, the Wasp, and Thor teaming up against Thor's evil half-brother Loki, the Norwegian god of mischief. And then in issue 4, Marvel did something particularly good. They brought back the Star-Spangled Avenger, Captain America. And I'm not going to go into the how or the why, as, I'll explain that in a later episode, but they were able to bring back Cap, make him an honorary member of the Avengers, and he is still with the team to this day. The Avengers are still around, thank goodness. There was also the Justice League of America. So many other teams and groups introduced by so many other companies. Carlton Comics introduced the Blue Beetle, Captain Atom, Nightshade, Peacemaker. There was Jonah Hex, the Metal Men, the Challengers of the Unknown, Tommy Tomorrow of the Planeteers, the Legion of Superheroes. So many great characters were introduced or reintroduced or reinvigorated during this period in history. Things were changing, folks, for the better. Alright, now then, that's enough for today. I've talked you people's ears off enough. Come back next time, hopefully, for the next episode of my video blog, where I'll be talking about the Bronze Age of comics. This is a very interesting period in history for not just superhero comics, but comics in general. That's enough for today. To all readers and viewers out there, please keep watching my videos and keep reading my blog. Thank you, and have a good day.
Excellent.